You know, if there's one thing that has established itself pretty early on with this administration, it's that we are seeing sheer incompetence in nearly every single level of our government. Whether you're talking about Pete Hegseth texting classified information over a third-party messaging app to his very own family, or whether you're talking about implementing tariffs on land masses that don't even have any human inhabitants. I mean, literally the list could probably go on for days and days. But I think if there's one thing that we all think about where we do not want any incompetence, it's the safety of our air travel. And over the past 100 days or so, we have only started to see an increase in these types of accidents. I mean, we saw a commercial airliner collide with a military helicopter, killing 67 people. And we have seen near misses all over the country. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like these problems are being addressed fast enough under this incompetent administration. And now we are hearing about new problems that are arising over in Newark, one of our most busy airports. And I think everybody should probably know about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what exactly is going on there really quick, and then we will discuss. And if you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Growing alarm at Newark's Liberty Airport tonight. ABC News learning air traffic controllers lost radar and communications with planes packed with passengers for 60 to 90 seconds last week. A system-wide outage last Monday at a Philadelphia facility that manages the airspace around Newark Airport caused controllers to lose the ability to see, hear, or talk to all arriving and departing aircraft at one of the busiest airports in the country. Pilots can be heard learning of the outage over the radio.
I just got told that the approach lost all their radars. 3 of their 4 radar screens went black, and they have no frequencies.
Controllers from another tower advising pilots that radio frequencies have failed.
And they want you to be advised that they may not be able to radar contact you because of the radar issues, and they may lose you on for certain times of when you're flying.
In a statement, the union saying many controllers took medical leave, citing, quote, a traumatic event.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely terrifying. These air traffic controllers were completely blind as to who they were trying to be navigating through the skies. Of course that's going to be traumatic. And because we already have a shortage of air traffic controllers, if a few of these guys take leave for this mental anguish, well, then that has a compounding effect on how well these airports can operate. So now we are seeing huge delay times, and even one air traffic controller came out and said that you should avoid Newark at all costs. That is a chilling statement that I do not want to be hearing from somebody like an air traffic controller. Now, how is the Trump administration responding to all this with the brand new transportation secretary? Well, here he is running over to Fox News to try to blame everything on guess who?
No, listen, we have backups in place, but let's talk about what happens. So we have really old infrastructure in America. It hasn't been updated in the last 30, 40 years. This should have been dealt with in the last administration. They did nothing. So the primary communication line went down. The backup line didn't fire. And so for 30 seconds, we lost contact with air traffic.
That's a big problem, don't you think?
It is. Now, were planes going to crash? No, they have communication devices. They can see other air traffic like GPS in the airplanes. But it's a sign that we have a frail system in place, and it has to be fixed.
Yeah, it should come as no surprise that we have frail systems in place. We have been talking about this for years now. Everybody knows that we have old infrastructure, that our systems need to be updated, and to try to just pass the buck on to Biden and try to blame the Biden administration for this specific issue, I mean, that's quite an insane thing to do. But that is exactly what we continue to see out of this incompetent administration. They are more concerned with running over to Fox News to start playing the blame game that they're not even in the trenches trying to actually figure out these problems. Now, Sean Duffy wasn't done trying to blame everything on the Biden administration. Here he is trying to say that they didn't even make any investments into air traffic control at all.
This is not a new problem. We've known this problem has existed. There's been multiple GAO reports over the last 4 years saying you have real problems with air traffic control and you should do something with it before it actually fails. So think about this. The last administration spent $1.2 trillion. The largest infrastructure package ever known to man, they spent, Joe Biden signed right here at this White House. And how much was spent to rebuild air traffic control? $5 billion. And of the $5 billion that was spent or was given, only $1 billion was actually spent. So they have made no investments in the system that we now see having issues in Newark.
So did you guys catch that? He says, well, the Biden administration, well, they allocated $5 billion and they spent $1 billion. But then in his very next sentence, he says the Biden administration didn't invest in anything at all. What are you talking about, Sean Duffy? To think that the Biden administration was not addressing this is just a ludicrous thing to think. He even properly addressed the numbers here. The Biden administration in that infrastructure bill allocated a direct $5 billion for air traffic control. Last time I checked, $5 billion is quite a bit of money. Now, I don't know if that is enough money to upgrade our systems to where it needs to be. I don't necessarily have the answer to that question. But to think that the Biden administration wasn't trying to address this is just insane. And not only did they put the $5 billion into air traffic control, but they allocated another $15 billion to upgrade infrastructure at airports all around the country. So Sean Duffy just has no idea what he's talking about. But again, we continue to see this out of an incompetent administration. This is not a good sign of good leadership. You want a leader who's going to come out here and say, we've got this problem and this problem and this problem, and here are the steps that we are taking to address this issue, and maybe we get some sort of timeline as to when this issue might be fixed. That is not what we get out of this administration. And it really kind of just makes you miss somebody like Pete Buttigieg, who was just much more competent in this role. Here he is talking about that very clip that we saw of Sean Duffy trying to blame the Biden administration.
And now the current Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy of Real World fame, which I'm just going to keep saying, basically blamed the whole thing on the Biden administration. I just want to play a clip of him because I'm sure you might have some thoughts on this.
But how close were we for potential disaster there?
No, listen, we have backups in place. But let's talk about what happened. So we have really old infrastructure in America. It hasn't been updated in the last 30, 40 years. This should have been dealt with in the last administration. They did nothing.
What do you make of that?
It's just politics. Look, I hated the technology that we inherited because it did need to be upgraded. So
from the last administration and prior to.
Yeah, I mean, look, these problems have built up over a long time. I didn't sit around saying who can we blame for this. We launched a contract to modernize the infrastructure, take what's basically a copper wire system and transform it for the internet era, get fiber going there. Now, that's not something that could be done overnight. One of the things that's hardest to do when you leave an office like that is you hand over the keys, and it's up to the new guy to take it to the next level.
So I think there's a couple important things that he just said here. And I think the main thing that stands out to me right here, Pete Buttigieg says, we didn't just stand around looking for somebody to blame. I think that is so important. It is exactly what we are seeing out of the Trump administration. Like I said, they are more concerned about running over to Fox News, running over to other right-wing news outlets to try to do the blame, Biden. I mean, that is all we see out of this administration. This is what Donald Trump surrounded himself with, the incompetent individuals who are better on TV than actually solving real problems. And another thing here, Pete Buttigieg just sounds so much more competent. He addresses that we have an issue. Yes, we have old infrastructure that needs to be updated. He even says we need to go from cable to fiber. He is addressing the issue there. And then he says, yeah, of course this is an issue. We allocated money for the issue. We started new contracts so we could get these issues solved. But that's not what we're hearing out of the Trump administration. And I think the last thing is that people want to just snap their fingers and everything is going to be better. But we all know that's just not how the world works. These problems take time to solve, especially when you're talking about something as complex as air traffic control in airports, which we do not have any margin for error. So, of course, it is going to take time to upgrade these problems. Now, the Trump administration just wants you to think that Biden was doing nothing when clearly that is just not the case. And in fact, why aren't they talking about all of the cuts this administration has been doing to the federal government? And Pete Buttigieg addresses that here.
Some of this, but in February, apparently, the administration halted an outside panel of experts responsible for reviewing the FAA's air traffic control management. We learned today that there was the firing of the vice chair of the NTSB, of course, responsible for investigating. What should people understand about the impact of all of that?
Well, they should understand, first of all, that's a highly unusual thing. That safety panel was not a political body. It was a very bipartisan body, and the work it's doing should really not be something that changes depending on which party is in control. And the NTSB, this is the National Transportation Safety Board. They're independent from the DOT. They're the ones who go in situations like the tragic plane crash that took place here in Washington earlier this year. They leave no stone unturned. They are pros. They're extraordinary what they do. And they put heat on everybody from the administration to industry to make needed improvements. But again, this is a very bipartisan body. I have never heard of a White House in modern times removing somebody from the NTSB, and they've not provided any explanation or reason why. And that's something that I think anybody in the public, as a taxpayer and as a traveler, would want to know and understand.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The Trump administration just randomly fired I think he was the only black individual who was working at the NTSB, and all of a sudden they just fired him one day. No reason why. Maybe it was under the guise of DEI or whatever the other culture war is that this administration is trying to fight. I mean, and that is only the NTSB. That is an agency that I believe, kind of investigates accidents after they happen. What about all of the different cuts that they have been making to the federal government writ large? And we know that the FAA was not immune to those cuts. Even some air traffic controllers got that whole fork in the road email, which offered people a buyout for their position. So how does it make sense that we acknowledge that we have a shortage of air traffic controllers, and then you have a Trump administration that comes in and is not only firing tens of thousands of federal employees, but is also targeting some air traffic controllers with a buyout? How does that make sense? Again, this is the type of incompetence that we are getting out of the Trump administration. Donald Trump is more concerned with surrounding himself with Trump sycophants than he is finding qualified people who can actually do these jobs. And like I said before, it kind of just makes you miss somebody like Pete Buttigieg, who was much more competent in this role. He sounds much more competent when he speaks about the issues. And he also has a better understanding of, these things don't just happen overnight. It's a process that's going to play out over time. So I just wanted to bring this to your guys' attention. Of course, we are going to continue to highlight the incompetence out of this administration. And I definitely do not want to freak anybody out as far as what is going on over at Newark. I just think it's important that an air traffic controller came out and said, avoid Newark at all costs. So I'm not trying to instill any undue panic or anything like that, but I do think we should be aware of these situations, and I think it's something that we should keep an eye on as we move forward. So maybe if you are able to avoid Newark for the next few months until this problem gets resolved, maybe you consider doing that. I don't know. That is a call that you're going to have to make, but I thought we should all probably know what is going on under this incompetent administration. Now, those air traffic controllers that took medical leave, I do not blame any of them for that. I think all of these people need to be at the top of their game. They need to be at their best fit or whatever. So I do not blame these people for taking a bit of time off after that very, very traumatic event. So do not get me wrong on that front there. I think that is absolutely the right thing to do because we want these people to be performing at their best, essentially. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against the right-wing media ecosystem that just kind of runs cover-up for this incompetent Trump administration day in and day out. So if you do like what we do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. It is free. And if you guys want to see Donald Trump called out straight to his face by the new Prime Minister of Canada, do watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.